Hey everyone! Welcome back to English Daily Talk. I'm Jessica, and I'm really happy you're here with us today.
And I'm Chris. If you've been following our C1 series, you already know that this is not just about learning advanced vocabulary or complex grammar. It's also about listening to real emotions, real stories, and using English to explore the quieter parts of our lives.
Today's episode is called The Promise We Make to Ourselves. It's about those quiet decisions we make when nobody is watching, those little vows that live only in our minds and hearts.
Maybe you've made one of those promises before. Something like, I'll start taking care of my health, or I'll practice English every day, or I'll stop saying yes to things that hurt me.
In this episode, we'll do what we usually do in the C1 series, but with a twist. The whole story will unfold as a conversation between us, from beginning to end. We'll walk through one particular promise, how it was made, how it was broken, and how it slowly became real again.
Then we'll move into reflection, keep talking about what it means to stay true to ourselves, and finish with a language spotlight, where we pull out some C1 expressions from our conversation and explain how you can use them.
So, if you can, grab a drink, take a deep breath, and allow yourself to slow down.
Let's step into today's story together. So, Jessica, when you hear the phrase, the promise we make to ourselves, is there a specific moment in your life that comes to mind?
Yes. Actually, there is one night that I remember very clearly. It was a Tuesday, late at night, and I was on a nearly empty bus, going home from work.
A late night bus. Sounds like one of those in-between moments, when everything is quiet enough for your brain to finally speak.
Exactly. The city outside the window was blurred by light rain. My head was heavy, and my shoulders hurt from sitting at a desk all day. I remember thinking, how did my life become just this?
What was this for you at that time? What did your life look like?
I was working at an office that was always busy but strangely hollow. My days were full of emails, meetings, and small urgent tasks that never really mattered in the long term. I would wake up already tired, rush through my morning, sit in front of a screen for hours, eat lunch quickly at my desk, and then stay late because there was always just one more thing to finish.
That sounds like a life that is technically full, but emotionally empty.
Yes, it was a life without space to breathe. What made it worse was this little voice in my head saying, "This isn't you. This isn't the life you imagined. You're shrinking."
And you heard that voice on the bus.
I had been hearing it for months. But on that evening, for some reason, it felt louder. Maybe it was the quiet bus. Maybe it was because I saw my reflection in the window and barely recognized myself.
What did you see in that reflection?
I saw someone who looked older than she was. Someone whose shoulders were always slightly tense, whose eyes were always a little tired. Someone who looked like she had slowly started to disappear from her own life.
And that's a strong image, disappear from your own life. What do you mean by that?
I mean that I was still physically there, but my dreams, my curiosity, and my energy were not. They were somewhere far away, waiting. I didn't read for pleasure anymore. I didn't draw. I didn't go for walks. I didn't try new things. I just tried to survive each week.
And on that bus, something shifted.
Yes. I opened the Notes app on my phone and started typing without thinking. And I wrote a sentence that surprised me.
What did you write?
I wrote, "1 year from today, I will not still be living like this."
Wow, that sounds like a very clear promise.
It was. I stared at that sentence for a long time. It felt like a line in the sand, like I was finally saying enough to my own life.
Did you feel scared when you wrote it?
Terrified. Because a promise like that is both exciting and dangerous. It means something has to change. And change is uncomfortable, especially when you have responsibilities and people who depend on you.
So what exactly did that promise mean to you? I will not still be living like this. How did you interpret it?
It meant that I would not still be half asleep in my own life a year later. It didn't necessarily mean I had to quit my job or run away to another country. It meant that I would not keep betraying myself, that I would move, even slowly, towards something that felt more honest.
That's interesting, not betraying yourself. Do you feel like staying in that situation was a kind of self-betrayal?
Yes. Each time I told myself, it's fine. It's not that bad. You're overreacting. I was silencing the part of me that knew I was not okay. I think a lot of people do that. We convince ourselves that our discomfort is just us being weak, when sometimes it's just our heart saying, please listen.
So you made that promise. What happened after that night on the bus?
At first, nothing dramatic. I didn't suddenly quit my job or change my life completely, but something inside me shifted. That sentence became a quiet reference point. Whenever I felt exhausted, I would remember it. 1 year from today, I will not still be living like this.
Did you write the date?
I did. I typed the date at the top of the note. It felt official, like a contract with myself.
And did you read it often?
In the beginning, yes. For a few weeks. I would open the note during my lunch break and remind myself, you promised. You can't forget. But gradually, the routine swallowed me again. I got busy, and the note became just another line in an endless list of digital notes.
So the promise started fading into the background.
Exactly. It became one of those things that lives at the back of your mind. Present, but blurred. I still felt that something needed to change, but I didn't know how. I told myself, I'll figure it out when I have more time. Which, of course, never happened.
That sounds very familiar. I think many listeners can relate to that feeling of, yes, I'll change later.
Right. Later is so comfortable. It makes us feel like we're responsible without actually doing anything.
So, if we move forward in time, what brought the promise back to the surface? Or
It was another ordinary day. Months later, I was in a meeting that went in circles for 2 hours. Afterward, my manager asked me to stay late again, just this once, which was something he said every week.
classic.
I went to the bathroom, looked at myself in the mirror, and I felt this wave of frustration. Not at him, but at myself. I thought, you promised. Where did that promise go?
And that's when you remembered the note.
Yes. I went back to my desk, opened my phone secretly under the table, and scrolled through my notes until I found it. The date at the top shocked me.
How far away was the 1-year mark?
It was only 3 months away. 9 months had passed since the night on the bus. 9 months where I had mostly done nothing to move towards the life I wanted.
How did that feel?
Honestly, I felt guilty and somehow embarrassed in front of myself. I didn't care what other people thought at that moment. I was just disappointed that I had made myself a promise and then quietly abandoned it.
That's a painful realization, when you recognize that you've been breaking your own word.
Exactly. We talk a lot about trust in relationships with other people, but we don't talk enough about self-trust. How can you trust yourself if you constantly ignore your own commitments?
So what did you do with that feeling? Did it push you into action?
Yes, but in a small, almost invisible way at first. I realized that I was waiting for some perfect, dramatic moment to change my life. A big, cinematic event. But life doesn't usually give us those. So I decided to do something incredibly small but consistent.
What was that small thing?
I made a new rule. For 1 hour every week, I would do something that belonged only to me. Not to work. Not to anyone else. Just to me.
1 hour a week. That doesn't sound like much, but it can be huge.
Exactly. It was realistic. I told myself, if you can't even give yourself 1 hour a week, how are you going to build a different life? So, every Wednesday evening, I would leave the office on time no matter what. I didn't stay just 15 minutes more. I went straight to a nearby cafe, ordered a simple drink, and used that hour to reconnect with myself.
What did you do in that hour?
Sometimes I journaled. Sometimes I read a book about creativity or psychology. Sometimes I simply sat there and watched people. It wasn't about productivity. It was about remembering that I was a person, not just an employee.
Did anyone at work question your new boundary?
At first, yes. My manager made a few comments like, "Oh, leaving early today," even though I was just leaving on time. I would smile politely and say, "Yes, I have an appointment." And I did. An appointment with myself.
I love that. An appointment with myself. It sounds simple, but it carries a lot of weight.
It does. Because in those moments, I was teaching myself that my time and my inner life mattered too. The more I kept that promise, the stronger I felt. Not in a loud or aggressive way, but in a quiet, grounded way.
Did that 1 hour a week actually change anything bigger in your life?
Over time, yes. During those hours, I started sketching again. Just little drawings in a notebook. I had forgotten how much joy drawing used to bring me. I also started writing down ideas for things I might want to do in the future. Courses to take, projects to try, ways to use my skills outside the office.
So that hour became a small island of possibility in the middle of your week.
Exactly. It felt like stepping onto a tiny piece of land after swimming in a stormy sea. That 1 hour didn't fix my whole life, but it helped me reconnect with the version of myself who still believed in something more.
And what happened as the 1 year mark approached?
As it got closer, I realized that the promise I had made on the bus didn't mean I had to have everything figured out within a year. It meant that I had to be moving in a different direction. And I was. I was taking small steps, building new habits, exploring new ideas.
Did you still feel like you had broken the original promise? Or did you feel like you were finally honoring it?
I felt like I was finally honoring it. Imperfectly, but honestly. When I checked the date again, on the exact 1 year anniversary, I was still at the same job, but I wasn't living in the same way. I had boundaries. I had a weekly ritual for myself. I had signed up for an evening course in illustration, and for the first time in a long time, I felt movement.
That's powerful, because it shows that not living like this doesn't always mean changing everything on the outside. Sometimes it means changing how you show up inside your own life. Kyunsari.
Yes, exactly. The promise was not about becoming a different person overnight. It was about not abandoning myself again and again.
I think many listeners might expect a story where you quit dramatically and start a completely new life. But your story is quieter and maybe more realistic. Say,
I think so too. Big, dramatic changes are exciting to talk about, but many real transformations are made of small, repeated choices. Saying no when you mean no. Saying yes when your whole body says yes. Protecting your sleep. Giving yourself permission to dream again.
at what point did you feel, okay, now I'm truly keeping the promise I made to myself?
It was maybe a year and a half after that bus ride. I was walking home from my evening illustration class, holding my sketchbook, and I suddenly thought, I'm proud of you. It sounds a bit cheesy, but it was true. For the first time in a long time, I felt proud. Not because of my achievements, but because I had stayed loyal to myself, even in small ways.
It doesn't sound cheesy at all. It sounds like a moment of genuine self-respect.
Yes, that's exactly what it was. I realized that the promise I made on the bus was not a one-time thing. It was a doorway. Once I stepped through it, I had to keep choosing myself again and again.
I'm curious, if you could go back and talk to the version of yourself on that bus, what would you say to her?
I think I would tell her, you don't have to fix everything at once. Just don't go back to sleep. Keep listening to that uncomfortable voice inside you. It's not your enemy. It's your guide.
That's beautiful. And I think many learners who are listening to this might have their own bus moment. where they realize that they can't keep postponing the life they want.
Yes. And for some of them, that moment might be right now, as they are listening to us.
True. Maybe someone is listening to this on their commute, or in a noisy cafe, or late at night on their bed, and they know deep down that something needs to change. So,
If that's you, I want to say this. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to know all the steps. You just need to make one promise to yourself that you're actually willing to keep, and then honor it, even when nobody sees it.
and it can be something very practical, like, I will speak English out loud for 5 minutes every day, or I will stop checking my phone in the first 30 minutes after I wake up.
Yes. Or, I will give myself one quiet hour each week, just for me. It doesn't have to be heroic. It just has to be real.
I like that. Not heroic, just real. Because the promises that truly change us are usually not the dramatic ones we post online, but the private ones we keep returning to again and again.
Exactly. And those private promises slowly build who we become.
So, if we step back from your story, what do you think it reveals about the promises we make to ourselves?
I think it shows that those promises are less about perfection and more about direction. They're like a compass. You don't always walk in a straight line, but you keep checking where you're headed.
I like that image, a compass. It means that even if you get lost, you can reorient yourself.
Right. And it also shows that breaking a promise to yourself doesn't have to be the end of the story. You can notice it, forgive yourself, and recommit.
That's important, because many people feel that once they fail, that's it. I said I'd do this every day, and I missed a week, so there's no point anymore.
Exactly. But that mindset is actually another way of abandoning yourself. Sometimes keeping a promise means adjusting it so that it's realistic. Sometimes it means starting again in a kinder way.
I also noticed something in your story. Your promise was not about becoming perfect. It was about not abandoning yourself. That's a very different energy.
Yes, because perfection is a trap. It makes you feel like you're never enough. But not abandoning yourself is an act of loyalty. It means, I am on my own side, even when I'm struggling.
How do you think this connects to our listeners who are learning English at a C1 level?
I think many advanced learners carry silent promises. Promises like, one day I'll feel confident speaking, or I'll stop being afraid of making mistakes. But if those promises stay vague and emotional, they're hard to keep.
So they need to become concrete.
Yes. Instead of only saying, I'll be more confident, you can promise something specific. I will speak for 5 minutes out loud every day, even if I feel awkward. Or once a week. I will record myself talking about a topic and listen back without judging myself.
That kind of promise is measurable. You can actually see if you kept it.
And when you keep it, even in small ways, you slowly build self-trust, not just in your language ability, but in your relationship with yourself.
In other words, you start to believe. When I say I'll do something for myself, I follow through.
Exactly. And that belief is incredibly powerful. It changes how you stand, how you speak, how you move through the world. Sounds?
So maybe the deeper lesson here is that every small promise you keep to yourself is a way of quietly stepping into your own life again.
Yes. One small, consistent step at a time.
I want to talk a little more about the idea of self-trust. We often think of trust as something between two people. But in your story, it's very clear that trust with yourself is just as important.
Definitely. If you can't trust your own word, everything becomes unstable. You may have big dreams, but you don't believe you'll follow through, so you feel stuck.
And then you might start depending too much on external pressure, deadlines, other people's expectations to move forward.
Exactly. But when you build self-trust, you can move forward from the inside. You don't need someone watching you or pushing you. You become your own witness.
Being your own witness, that's a strong phrase. It suggests that you see yourself clearly, and you don't look away.
Yes. You see the parts you're proud of and the parts you're not proud of, and you decide to stay with yourself anyway. That's what a real promise looks like to me.
What do you think stops people from making these promises or from keeping them?
Fear, mostly. Fear of failure, fear of change, fear of disappointing others, and sometimes fear of discovering who we could become if we really tried.
That last one is interesting. Fear of our own potential.
Yes, because if you see your potential clearly, you also see the distance between your current life and what's possible. That distance can be uncomfortable.
And yet, that distance is also where growth happens.
Exactly. A promise to yourself is like a bridge across that distance. It doesn't magically transport you to the other side, but it gives you a path to walk on. So,
Step by step.
step by step.
All right, let's move into our language spotlight. We'll pull out some C1 level expressions from our conversation and break them down for you.
The first expression is to betray oneself, or to betray yourself.
In the story, you said that staying in a situation that was slowly draining your energy felt like a form of self-betrayal.
Right. To betray yourself means to go against your own values, needs, or truth. For example, she knew the job was wrong for her, but she stayed for years, and it felt like she was betraying herself.
This is a powerful phrase when you want to talk about ignoring your own deeper needs.
The second expression is a line in the sand.
You used it when you described that note on your phone as a line in the sand.
Yes. A line in the sand means a clear limit that you decide not to cross again. It's a strong boundary. For example, when he realized how stressed he was, he drew a line in the sand and stopped working on weekends.
The third expression is a quiet reference point.
I said the sentence on my phone became a quiet reference point. That means it was something I kept returning to in my mind, especially when I felt lost or uncertain.
You can also say a point of reference. For example, her childhood promise to herself became a quiet reference point whenever she had to make difficult decisions.
The fourth expression is to not abandon oneself or to stop abandoning yourself.
This is not a fixed idiom, but it's a very natural and emotional way to express self-respect and self-care.
Yes. It means that you stay loyal to your own needs and values, especially when life becomes difficult. For example, he used to say yes to everything, but he realized he was abandoning himself, so he started setting boundaries.
The fifth expression is to step into one's own life.
We talked about stepping back into your own life. This is a metaphorical way to say that you start living actively and consciously again, instead of just existing.
For example, after years of living on autopilot, she slowly stepped back into her own life.
Our sixth expression is to be on one's own side.
You said, I am on my own side, even when I'm struggling.
Yes. This means you support yourself, the way a good friend would. For example, even when she made mistakes, she tried to be on her own side instead of criticizing herself.
And finally, the seventh expression. Not heroic, just real.
I use this to describe promises that are not dramatic or impressive, but honest and sustainable.
You can use this pattern in other contexts. For example, his progress was not heroic, just real, small daily steps that added up over time.
As you listen to this episode again, notice these expressions and try to repeat them out loud. You can even make your own sentences using them, especially in relation to your own life.
That way, the vocabulary becomes not just something you understand, but something you can actually use to tell your own story. Before we completely close, how about we give our listeners a tiny reflective exercise they can actually do after this episode?
I love that idea. Something simple, but meaningful. Something that turns this episode into an action. So,
Okay, let's design it together, step by step.
Step 1. Find a quiet moment. It doesn't have to be long. Maybe just 5 minutes. You could sit on your bed, on a bus, in a cafe, or at your desk with headphones on.
Step 2. Ask yourself a very honest question. Where in my life do I feel like I'm slowly disappearing? It might sound dramatic, but often there's at least one area where you feel smaller than you really are.
Step 3. Notice what comes up. It might be your job, your studies, your relationships, your health, or even your relationship with English. Don't judge it. Just notice it.
Step 4. From that area, choose one tiny promise you could make to yourself. Not 10 promises, just one. Something small enough that you could realistically keep it for the next month.
For example, every weekday, I will spend 10 minutes reading something in English that I actually enjoy. Or twice a week, I will go for a short walk without my phone.
Step 5. Write it down, with today's date. That small detail makes it feel more real. You can write it in your first language or in English, depending on what feels more powerful for you.
Step 6. Tell your future self that you will try, not perfectly, but sincerely, to honor this promise. You might even say it out loud. I'm going to try to show up for you.
And step 7. At the end of 1 week, check in with yourself. Ask, did I keep this promise? If not, why? And how can I adjust it so it fits my real life better?
This check-in is very important. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to stay in conversation with yourself, instead of going back to sleep.
Exactly. You're not a machine that either succeeds or fails. You're a human being who learns, adjusts, and grows.
If you like. You can even do this whole exercise in English. Write your promise and your reflections in English. That way, you are strengthening both your language and your relationship with yourself at the same time.
And if you ever feel discouraged, remember the night on the bus from our story? Change didn't happen in one big explosion. It happened quietly, through small, repeated choices.
One quiet promise at a time. Same one.
One honest step at a time.
And we'll be here, episode after episode, walking with you, as you practice not only English, but also the gentle art of not abandoning yourself.
That, in a way, is also the promise we make to you as English Daily Talk, to bring you real stories, real language, and real moments of reflection.
And to remind you, again and again, that your inner life matters in any language.
So, take this episode with you into your day, maybe into your commute, or your lunch break, or your evening walk.
Let it be a little reminder that you are allowed to draw a line in the sand. You are allowed to say, from today, I will not keep living exactly the same way.
Even if the change is tiny, if it's true, it counts.
And maybe, just maybe, 1 year from now, you'll look back and think, I'm proud of the way I showed up for myself.
We hope you will.
So, as we come to the end of this episode, maybe take a moment and ask yourself, is there a promise I need to make to myself? Or a promise I once made that I want to renew?
Remember, it doesn't have to be big or dramatic. It doesn't have to impress anyone. It just has to be honest and something you're willing to keep.
Maybe it's about your health. Maybe it's about creativity. Maybe it's about your English. Maybe it's simply, I will not disappear from my own life.
Whatever it is, write it down somewhere. Put today's date on it. Let it become your own quiet reference point.
And when you keep that promise, even in very small ways, know that you're building something deep and powerful. Self-trust.
Thank you for spending this time with us and for doing this deeper kind of work in English. It's not easy, but it's meaningful.
This is Jessica.
And this is Chris.
This is English Daily Talk. See you in the next episode.